Welcome to the Fractal Effects live stream. Please make sure you read the disclosure. If you're following along with us today, make sure you're doing a demo account, as this is for educational purposes only. We are not financial advisors, and this is not financial advice. Let's jump onto the charts. We have NAS on the left, US 500 on the right. We originally had a downside expansion model happening, where London was forming below Asia. But we did get a bullish confirmation in London, retracement, and expansion. And we had some minor news drop around 10 o'clock today. So we've had a big run up. Still waiting for a confirmation. Since we have such a big range, I want to see if we get above this fair value gap. So we are still primarily bullish. That's Tuesday's range under us with the aqua lines. We've already taken out Asia highs. Now let's see if we continue up. We've already had a retracement. Let's see if we also tap that 20 EMA. Now usually we like to see a confirmation before we see a retracement. Otherwise, if we retrace back to the 20 before we get a confirmation, it can take off quick. It can use the top of the dealing range or the first fair value gap that's formed. Usually we like to see, again, the retracement after confirmation because it slows everything down for us. It's easier to catch that train. We are getting rejection from the consequence encroachment of that fair value gap. We haven't quite touched the 20 EMA yet. Anybody joining us live, make sure you do subscribe, hit that notification, but also make sure you're checking out all the videos on the Learning Hub on the back end of fractaleffects.com, where we go over the strategy in depth and every attribute of the indicator itself, all the features, and how they play together. Otherwise, this might just look like a jumbled mess to you. But we've actually designed a high probability trading strategy that works together with 20 years of aggregate data. That makes this almost color by numbers setup. So again, we're above the 238 EMA, close to the 20. We are still extremely bullish. And as mentioned before, any asset you're looking at, make sure you're looking at it on multiple time frames, 15 minute, 5 minute, 1 minute. So you can see when the push is happening. Still haven't hit that 20. Let's lay down the Fibonacci just so we know whereabouts we are in the dealing range itself. Remember, the indicator actually paints out where 50% is. I just like to see more of a visual representation of where 71, 79 is. 50% is painted out right there. Shows you where the midpoint of the dealing range is. You can change that color, make it a solid line if you'd like. Still just gesticulating here, no confirmation. Now we're seeing some divergence here. US 500 closer to the lows here. Can we sweep these lows? Not quite. Remember, if you're trying to see, if you see two candles side by side and you're trying to see which one's lower, all you got to do is put the cursor on it, and then up here you'll see the open of that candle, the high, the low, and the close. So I'm trying to see this candle here. The low is 731.4. 731.4, they're exactly the same. So we did not sweep the lows, but we're very close to the bottom here. We definitely swept these candles here, which NAS has not, which means NAS could have a deeper retracement. We'll see. Right now, on a smaller time frame, we're just seeing anemic candles wicking. Still nothing of interest. This could still push down further, tap that 20, maybe even drive down further and tap the New York fair value gap. Still no confirmation. We do have a relatively big range today, though. US 500. Right at the London fair value gap. Or is that the Asia? Sorry. Actually, sorry, that's the Asia fair value gap. There's London's down here. So it's stuck between Asian fair value gap and the New York fair value gap. Sorry, Asia fair value gap and New York fair value gap. And we're also bouncing off the 50. This is US 500 on the right, NAS on the left. We're just using this to see if there's any divergence. If you're not familiar with the concept of divergence, again, please check out the Learning Hub. Still just anemic candles on a smaller time frame, which lets me know that things waiting for something still. Either that or it could just give us one big push straight up. With the US 500 being this close to the bottom, I wouldn't be surprised if they took one last swipe to take out these lows. But we'll see. Getting a little bit of reaction here on NAS now. Still no confirmation on either. Still got time, it's early. Everything's still just a little paused. Now we're only at 38%. So if it, again, pushes up from here, that means this is extremely bullish. And we'll have to look very carefully to see if we get fair value gaps here on the 1 minute. Or again, we could swipe down lower, closer to 50, 61%. That would make more sense. Tap that 20 on the way. That would allow US 500 to sweep these lows, which looks like it wants to. And once we see that divergence, then we'll see what the market wants to do. Did it just want to pause NAS while it swept the US 500 to pick up more liquidity and then both of them push up? Or will US 500 sweep the lows and pull NAS down? This is why we wait. Gotta make sure you have a high probability trade in front of you, 70% or higher. Anything lower than that is gambling. Just trying to get that push down now. US 500 really looks like it needs liquidity. You can see the range is much smaller. So it might actually sweep these lows just to gather more liquidity. These two markets are supposed to be moving in tandem. So anytime we see this kind of divergence, it helps us form a bias. So we want to see US 500 take these lows. But if it doesn't confirm bearish and we close back in the range, and NAS hits that 20, but it doesn't come down here or below this fair value gap, then we might see a bullish confirmation. But still nothing yet. Still gesticulating in this area. As mentioned before, ideally we want to see US 500 sweep these lows and close within the range. That'll give us a telltale sign that this thing actually wants to move up. Digging deeper into that fair value gap now, closer to that 20. Let's see how far we go. The 500 paused here still. Again, too much liquidity down here for it not to take a swipe. You can always tell by the range as well, as mentioned before, since these two markets work in tandem. You don't want to see, the smaller the range is on one of them, and it's usually US 500, you want to see it gather as much liquidity as it can to actually push up. Like, look at the difference of these two ranges, and they're supposed to be in tandem. So I wouldn't be surprised if this gathered all this liquidity, but it's where this candle closes and the confirmation we get that's more important. This is nowhere near its bottom, nowhere near taking out the lows. Still just waiting. Here comes US 500. Let's see if it takes out those lows, gathers its liquidity. And at the same time, I want to see NAS hit that 20. But I don't want to see a candle closing outside of this fair value gap. If it does, we'll get a deeper retracement, and then we might see some reaction down here. But ideally, we want to see this close within this fair value gap, and this swipe this liquidity and close within the box and not give us a bearish confirmation. That'll be a telltale sign that we want to push up, but again, we have no confirmation yet. We're still waiting. Remember to trust the rules. These rules are in place for a reason. This trading strategy was designed for beginners, for somebody who knows nothing about the market. You can literally watch the content that we have in the Learning Hub in a weekend, and then grab a demo account and practice, trade with us live, practice for at least 30 days, and then you're good. Quickest course that's ever been created. We don't bog you down with all the jargon you don't need, all the concepts that don't matter. Okay, here we go. We've swept those lows. Now let's see where this candle closes. We still got 22 seconds left. About to hit the 238. Seconds. On the NAS, we've hit the 20 EMA, digging deeper into that fair value gap. Okay, so we do have a bearish confirmation. Now I want to see if NAS pushes down further out of this fair value gap. Or if US 500 just jumps back in. And that's our divergence. Now we take a look on a, remember we're watching this on multiple time frames. There's only so many screens we can share with you guys. Again, see that divergence? As soon as we took out the lows, we jump back in. I want to see if this candle closes inside the range. And since we have that divergence, I'm not interested in looking for a sell here. I'm more interested in seeing if this gives us a bullish confirmation and if we retrace for a buy. Now we finally see fair value gaps forming. Now keep in mind we're still looking for a bullish confirmation. We do teach advanced entries before confirmation, but again, for beginners, we are always waiting for a confirmation. The indicator will literally give you an arrow, just like we see here. This is a bearish confirmation. Still just patiently waiting. 7 minutes from 11 Eastern Standard. We're slowly getting all the telltale signs that NAS wants to push up. Let's see what happens this next candle. Look at this. Driven all the way back up, almost back to mid-range of the dealing range here. I think as soon as we see a couple more candles here, NAS wants to push up and most likely pull US 500. Now, when it pulls US 500 up, it'll give us a false day over there, which is also not what we like to see. Since these markets are supposed to be working in tandem, we don't want to see a false day. Remember, a false day is when you get confirmation on one side and then you break the other side. Because how the strategy works, it's all based on probabilities and 20 years of aggregate data. When we break one side of that range and we get a confirmation, there's an 80% chance that we will not break that other side. And this is where we look for our trade to go in that direction. But now, when you have this kind of divergence and you want to see these two markets moving in tandem, and if we get a bullish confirmation and we do not or sorry, now that we've got a bearish confirmation and we end up getting a false day, we obviously avoid this market, but we proceed with caution here. And we make sure that we see all the right confluence. We want to make sure now that we do get that bullish confirmation first. And then, as mentioned before, since we've been primarily bullish and we already had this retracement before the confirmation, this market will most likely move quick once we do get that bullish confirmation. So we're getting some reaction on a smaller time frame from this fair value gap. This little one painted, let's change the color so it stands out. Four minutes to 11. US 500, still having a tough time getting over this New York fair value gap. Ideally, we want to see this get above the fair value gap, but get above the 20 EMA, and then use those two to push off of. So we see that this market could still push down. US 500 could drag it down, but because of that divergence, we're not interested in taking this sell. But it's still 11, just patiently waiting. Still just stuck there. Again, we want to see US 500 get above this 20 and above this New York fair value gap. Right now it's just rejecting off of it. NAS, on the other hand, it's giving us some good push off of this smaller time frame fair value gap. Now we're actually on the other side of the Asia fair value gap. Let's see if we can stay above the consequence encroachment of this. Well, that's candle bodies, I mean. I want to see where this candle body closes. When you watch these two markets side by side, that's when you can see the manipulation happening. As mentioned before, it's either they've paused this market to take more liquidity, and they're both going to push up, or they've given us a false hope of this sweep, and everybody goes long, and then they push both markets down, since we already have a confirmation here. But when you see this kind of divergence and this kind of manipulation, we want to proceed with caution. And right now, we're no longer interested in looking at US 500 for a sell. We want to see which side we get confirmation for NAS. About 2 minutes and 57 seconds left in this candle. Everything for NAS still looks bullish, but that's why we're waiting. A lot of consolidation happening right here. Slowly finally getting that push. We got that rejection. Same for US 500. We're now above that 20, heading into the New York fair value gap. We want to get above this fair value gap and then use the consequence encroachment to propel us. We do not want to see too many candles gesticulating sitting here. Otherwise, again, they're just creating false hope. US 500 still unable to get above that New York fair value gap. Let's see if we can get the confirmation before 11:30. US 500 right at the 20. But at least on the other side of it. Still waiting for this to drive up. What we don't want to see is too many of these candles gesticulating here. The longer it takes for US 500 to get over this New York Fair Value Gap, the more this could just drag NAS down with it. Let's see if we can't see this confirmation in the next 24 minutes. Remember, as soon as you get confirmation, the indicator shows you what the targets are. So we designed a system very much like color by numbers. Just go to Fractal Effects, check the dashboard, and it'll show you over the last 20 years how many standard deviation extensions we actually received for this particular asset during this particular session. And you can even filter it down to the day. Today is Wednesday, so you can just look that up. And it might say 1, might say 1.5. Those become our targets. And you make sure you take partials at each 0.5 standard deviations. But right now there's no confirmation yet. The indicator is dynamic, so it'll paint those standard deviations once we have confirmation. Otherwise it just becomes distracting. We're still staying above that smaller time frame fair value gap. US 500 back at the Asia fair value gap. So I took out all this liquidity, all these orders here. It's not a coincidence that it went just a couple ticks below here, just to take out people's stops. That's why it's a good indication that this thing wants to push up. Now it's still driving. Let's see if it starts leaving breakaway gaps. US 500 having a tough time getting over that New York fair value gap and above this, staying above this 20 EMA. Now it's back at that fair value gap, taking another swipe. We got a long wick here. Now let's see if this candle closes above the 20. Still 3 minutes left in it. Again, they're just gathering, engineering more liquidity. There are people that are going long here off this fair value gap, off the 20 EMA. There are people that are going short here off this fair value gap. Remember, fair value gaps are measured using three candles. We have the low of that candle wick to the high of this candle wick. There's a gap there. That's the fair value gap. That's where fair value has to be delivered to. And as you can see, it's already delivered there. We have multiple rejections off this fair value gap and this fair value gap. So they're just engineering new liquidity. It's not about delivering fair value anymore. It's about creating false hope. Seeing another push down. Closing in on 11:15. We're back at the consequence encroachment of this fair value gap. Still just gesticulating between these two fair value gaps. This is why confirmation saves us. Remember, if you're not in a trade within 1 hour of this range formation, just call it a day. We don't want to waste our time. Think about all the orders that were placed here and all the orders that were placed here. People on both sides just nervously biting their nails. About 14 minutes left in our stream. We're close to 50%. Now it's just took out these lows. And drop below 50%. Let's see if it goes all the way to 61%, hits that 50 and then bounces up. So if we get a push up from here, again, it took out these lows after engineering this liquidity on both sides. So it's doing here what US 500 was doing here. Needed to gather more liquidity. This long candle wick is a good sign. Now if we can just stay above the 20, fly up over this fair value gap, and the faster we take out these highs, the more this wants to push up. Let's see if that's what we get. But now this candle would, whatever happens here, should be happening quickly and not just continuing to gesticulate. Otherwise, again, it's just more manipulation. I want to see it fly above these highs as quickly as possible. Look at this candle wick. 1 minute left in this candle close. I want to see it close above this smaller time frame fair value gap and then tap it again and push up. "33 seconds left. Again, this is a very slow moving candle. That next one just gesticulates here. They've paused the market indefinitely for at least the next 2-3 candles. Otherwise, it should just be flying now. Once it swept liquidity, it's already delivered fair value. Doesn't need to sit here. So let's tap that fair value gap again. Now let's see if it shoots off from here or if it just pushes down. 9 minutes left in the stream. Three minutes, 26 seconds left in this candle. US 500 once again below the Asia fair value gap, once again below 20. Still just stuck there. Remember, the longer it stays here, the more the US 500 has an opportunity to just hold this down with it. And this late in the game, if we got a bearish confirmation, we wouldn't even be interested. But this is what protects us. Sometimes the best trade is the one you don't take. Right now, there's nothing of interest here. At the beginning, you're aiming to just get one successful trade a week with a 1 to 3 risk to reward. And if you're compounding correctly, that's 12% a month. It's better than any bank will get you. So now we're just continuing to push down here. Five minutes left in our stream. Still just sitting there. Way too much consolidation. Way too much manipulation here happening. About 2 minutes away. I think these rules protect us. By now we should have at least got a confirmation on NAS. The fact that we got one for US 500, all this gesticulation and make people think that they were going to go up, and they might just drop this to once again match up with US 500. So we will most likely conclude our session there. Unfortunately, we weren't able to see a high probability trade setup. But again, day trading is not everyday trading, just 1 day a week. That's all we want to focus on. Make sure you check us out on fractaleffects.com, where we teach algorithmic trading, high probability trading. Please make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification so you know when we're live. Currently, we're live Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from New York Open. Sorry, not New York Open. From 10:30 to 11:30 and possibly noon, depending on if we're in a trade. And have a